we began to talk about motivation when we were talking about uh, temperaments. So I want to continue that conversation. Uh, First of all, there are two basic ways to motivate you. And my question is, can I motivate you? And the answer is, some of you might say, yes, you can motivate us. I can influence you, but only you can motivate you. When they asked managers, what do people want? What motivates them? They came up with, the top 10 list. Their top three were things like more money, a promotion, more benefits, better benefits, uh, a parking spot, things like that. When they asked employees, while those things were important to them, like money, employees also said in their top three were things like, I want more to be able to give more input and have my voice be heard. I want to have more control over my time and my work. I want to uh, be in loop for decisions and have responsibility. So those are more intrinsic, and it's much easier for managers to use extrinsic rewards rather than intrinsic rewards because they have control over that. Now, 100 years ago, we didn't think much about people and motivation. If you remember during the industrial era we talked about before, what we thought about was people uh, it's the people are interchangeable. It's the machinery that's so important, the equipment. That's where our focus needs to be on. And so with that in mind, management was considered a hard science. Like that people are like machines. And so Frederick Taylor had this idea of scientific management. And what he really was saying was, if we take every job and we break it down to the smallest task, we can figure out how to make it most efficient and effective, and everybody will do the job the same way. With that in mind, they did time motion studies, and they figured out exactly how long it should take to do a job and what it would be the best and most effective way, and that everyone should do that job the exact same way with no difference. And we see that in companies like UPS. I don't know if anybody's worked for UPS, but they literally tell drivers, you have to turn here, you have to pick up the package this way, you have to have it stored this way, how to get out of their trucks, right foot first, how fast to walk. I mean, every single motion is calibrated, calculated, and measured, and they're actually evaluated on that. Okay? Now, take a look at that. How to hold their keys, how many packages to deliver in a day. That seems like a goal, but how fast to walk. And you got to keep track of, in fact, they keep track of all of that for all their drivers. The Hawthorne studies were focused on how light affects worker efficiency. If you have more light or less light. And what they found was, no matter what they did, the workers they were watching, we were effective, were productive, more so than any other worker, whether they turned up the light, excuse me, or turned down the light. So that what they learned from that, which seems obvious to us, but wasn't to them, was known as the Hawthorne effect. If you watch people, if people feel like they're special, they're being observed, they perform much better than at other times, regardless of the other external things. And that was really interesting because until that point, they thought of people as like machinery. They thought it was the light that would change their behavior, or the music, or whatever else was going on. So let's talk about Maslow now. Maslow is, you may have seen this before in your psychology classes. It is a theory of motivation based on the idea that if you have an unmet need, that's your focus. Until you meet that need, the next level up is not important to you. And I'll give you an example. If you have ever been starving and then gone to the grocery store to go grocery shopping, you buy everything and anything that's there. Now, if you completely full and you go grocery shopping, it's a totally different experience. because you're full and none of that is appealing to you. You moved on to your next need. And here's the hierarchy of needs. Physiological is what you think of: eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing. Next is safety. In the workplace, what this refers to is my job secure? Am I going to have a job tomorrow? Do I have, is there a retirement plan? Do I have benefits with my job? Social needs. Do I get along well with people at my work? Do we feel connected to each other? Maybe you do things with them outside of work. If you've ever been somewhere, you ever worked somewhere where you don't get along with people, where they don't like you, you know that's a very uncomfortable experience and you don't feel like going to work. Esteem needs refer to the idea that you're good at what you do, that you're competent, that you're knowledgeable, people look up to you at work and come to you. That pride of achievement, of understanding something, that's what they refer to with esteem. And the last is self-actualization. You are self-actualized, meaning you feel like you had a goal and you've reached it, and then you'll have a huge goal, another one after that. It's not like it goes away. Hertzberg is very interesting, and it's related to Maslow. And what he centered his question on was, what makes people work to their full potential? And here's what he found. He found there are two things. There are motivators and there are maintenance factors or hygiene factors. Those words are interchangeable for Hertzberg. And here's what that means. If you don't have, let's say, medical or dental insurance, it is a motivator for you because you want a job that provides that. I, for instance, do have that. I don't think about it. The only time I think about it is when they make a change. Let's say I have to pay more for it, or I'm no longer allowed to use the dentist I was using. Now I'm angry and upset about it. So hygiene factors or maintenance factors only serve to demotivate you. They don't serve to motivate you. Now, if you don't believe that, think about it this way. I don't get up every morning and think, I'm so excited. My Kaiser, this is what's making me go and see my students. That Delta Dental, that's what gets me out of bed every morning. No, that's not it. What gets me out of bed every morning and want to see you guys, even if it's this way, is the idea that you're going to learn something, that this is going to be relevant to you. It's going to help you in your work, that we're going to have a connection when I walk into the classroom. This is a motivating factor. Now, let's move on to here's the motivators, the hygiene maintenance factors, and I want to show you this slide right here. And these slides are all available under modules, under PowerPoints. If you'll notice, on the left is Maslow, on the right is Hertzberg, and the physiological, safety, and even social are considered maintenance factors. The work itself and the possibility of growth, advancement, recognition, those are the things that motivate people. And the hygiene or maintenance only serve to demotivate if they're changed or taken away. So I think that this is an excellent slide for you to spend some time on. Theory X and Y, basically a Theory X manager believes that people don't want to be at work. They're there because they have to be. And if they could get out of it, they would. And they will avoid responsibility. And the only thing that works to motivate people is fear and money. The Theory Y manager believes the exact opposite. People love to work as long as they've got the right job. And they'll seek ways to do it better, and they'll take the initiative and take responsibility, and they're motivated not by fear or money, but positive rewards. Type J is a guy named William Weechie out of UCLA that looked at the Japanese system and said, can we take something from that and incorporate it in us? The Japanese have a very different culture from us. They are communal. We are individualistic. And so they don't always translate, but I'm going to take you to a slide where he looks at both or all three. So you can take a look at here. In other words, we are very focused on, this is what I do it for this company. If I get a better offer, I'm going to go to another company. I don't feel a sense of loyalty necessarily, or whereas in Japan, people they used to have lifetime employment, now they have long-term employment. So they stay at a company for their whole careers typically. And if they are unhappy and they want to move, other companies don't want to hire them because they're seen as disloyal. So there's some pros and cons, but it's the idea of long-term moving people around within a company so they get to know it better. Goal setting. Well, you got to have a goal. You got to have something you're working towards. Otherwise, what's the point of what you're doing? And so the idea of goal setting theory is we've talked about this before, attainable goals, but that are still ambitious. You're reaching for something, but you feel like you can get there. Management by objective, developed by a guy named Peter Drucker. Actually had him as a professor way back when. Brilliant man. And what he basically said was, have employees be involved in setting their own goals. Don't tell them what to do. Have it be something they come up together with their managers, and then ongoing, continue to revise that goal, work with them, and meet regularly, and monitor results and reward achievement. Expectancy theory goes like this. What are my expectations of what I get if I complete this? Okay, so this chart is great because you can just see I'm not motivated. Can I accomplish it? If I can't even accomplish it, well then I forget it. I'm not even bother. But yeah, if I can, and then is it worth it? You know, if you've had assignments in class, other classes, not mine, that were really tedious and took forever, and they were only worth a tiny part of your grade, you may have decided it's not worth my time because I only have a limited amount of time, and I'd rather focus on other things that will get me a bigger outcome. So this is the idea of expectancy theory. You take a look at what you have to do. You have 100 things. You figure out what 20 are going to be the most important. So a couple things with this. Figure out what it is. So if you are the manager, you need to figure out what's most important and be able to relate that to employees so that they know as well, and make sure that your goals and standards are attainable and that they feel like the rewards are adequate. In other words, if I do all this work, this is going to mean I get an extra $5. Not going to bother. Oh, an extra $500, you say? Oh, okay. Equity theory. Everybody wants to feel like they're being treated fairly. And what that means is you may treat people differently as long as it's equitable. Okay. Job enrichment is the idea that you're getting more things in your job. It might be more work, but they're things you want to learn, you want to do, and that makes your job better for you. Job enlargement is the idea that you're just being given more stuff to do, and you didn't want to do all that extra stuff, but you don't have a choice. Job rotation is where you work. A lot of management training programs do this. You work in this one area for a year, then you might move to another area for a year, or even for a few months. You get to know the company and different departments much better, and it's a very smart thing to do. The Japanese do this regularly, typically in 5-year stints. That's way too long for us. We do it, 6 months at a time. Okay, so I'm going to move on. High context and low context. So low context cultures, when we're talking about international, low context cultures believe that everything is literal, that written word is very important. You have explicit communication. You say what you mean. A high context culture looks at relationships and who said it and what was their tone and where were they sitting when they said it and what did they mean by that. So everything is implied. It's hidden. We tend to be a low to medium context culture, as is most of Northern Europe, places like England and Norway and so forth. Whereas a high context culture tends to be most of Asia and Latin America and Africa. They tend to believe in relationships before task. We believe in task before. We don't care about the context. We just care about the actual job getting done. they're more concerned about, you know, I want to know that I can trust you before I get involved in a relationship, a working relationship with you. Let's talk about motivating employees across generations. For the first time, we have people of all ages working together, and you might have a 25-year-old managing a 65-year-old, and they do things differently. They grew up in different times. I've heard a lot of people joking that the babies that are going to be born a year from now are going to be known as the coronials. So baby boomers, they came up at a time when everything was popping. The U.S. was dominant. Our economy was great. Their parents had lived through the war and wanted to shield their kids from everything. And so the baby boom generation is now in retirement age. The oldest have been retired for a while now, and they are a huge cohort. We've talked about them before. Generation X is the smallest group here. They came up at a time when their parents were more likely to get divorced. Baby boomer parents, their parents that were depression era babies, and they stayed married forever. Generation X raised in dual career or single, where they would go see dad on the weekends and so forth. Often went to daycare or latchkey kids. They have much more a feeling of insecurity about their jobs, about their lives many times, just because their formative years were so different. Millennials. Millennials were raised by parents. They often are referred to as helicopter parents, where their parents were involved in every part of their life, and they felt like they should be able to attain their whatever they wanted, they could do. They're similar to boomers in some ways, but just it was a much more insecure time. They are also very large in terms of a cohort. And Generation Z, which is growing up right now, they are just coming into the workplace, and the main constant in their life is inconsistency. They don't remember a time without their cell phones in their hands or their iPads and so forth. So that they're a different generation, and they have a different set of values. And so when we talk about values, Generation X in the workplace, they tend to focus on results, whereas baby boomers tend to focus on, well, you need to stay here for this many hours. That's what I did. That's how I moved up. And they, Generation X focus more on career security than job security. In other words, do I have the skills I need if I lose this job to get a different job, a better job? And they tend to be good at being flexible because they grew up more insecure than any other group that's on that list. Millennials, impatient. This is how I think it needs to be done. Why aren't you doing it already? I thought I was going to graduate college and be like running this company in 5 years, and I'm not. They're able to multitask. They place a huge value on work-life balance, and they want their jobs to be interesting and fun, or it's not worth doing. Generation Z, interestingly enough, you would think that they would continue on being like, yeah, I need to be CEO in 5 years. They tend to be cautious. They are very pragmatic, and they're actually saving more money as young people than any other generation in history. They're investing in the market. They're interested in this kind of thing. So they're very tech savvy, but they're looking out for themselves, even though they want to feel like they're connected to a larger whole. They like causes. They grew up at a time with lots of people, lots of causes. Everybody got a different bracelet on, different T-shirt, and there's a march for something. And so while the millennials were out there marching, the Gen Z tends to do some of that, but they're also very pragmatic about, I got to go to work. I can't do that. So boomers prefer meetings and conference calls. They want that touch, that face-to-face. Xers prefer email, and they'll only choose meetings if there are no other options. Millennials, let's just, you tweet that and I'll retweet it and we're good. We don't, I got what you're saying. And Zers, interestingly, and this is bizarre, they don't like phone calls, but they like to meet face to face. So they found that malls are having a resurgence because this group is going to the mall as opposed to ordering everything online, which the other groups are doing. All right. So there's a lot of people in this to know. Some of that will, of course, be on the test. These slides are there for you to review, and I would recommend you do that.